This is Blue Boi of Katalyst Comics. I have been making comics since April last year, 2020. And I started making comics because I was stuck in lockdown and I needed to make something out of my life. So I decided to start making comics. I started with making a couple of characters based on my friends until one told me, hey, you should totally make a webcomic out of this. So I totally did, making a joke out of his ugly mug. So I have started making comics, and eventually it started to grow. People started liking the comics, so I started making more. It became a quite constant thing, and now I've grown to the level that I am right now. I'm appreciative of a lot of people who has helped me out on this. But ultimately, I am torturing myself for your amusement, and I cannot be happier about that. So I've always read a lot of comics since I was little. Not manga, but like comics, like gag comics. There have been a couple of local comics that are just purely gag comics that I really admired, like Doraemon or Garfield. They always focus on like one single joke that shifts the characters. Doesn't really change the characters all that much from time to time, but then it gives you so much flexibility into making any kind of jokes that you want. I can make it either romantic or sad or funny, however I want. This is like the most fun part about making comics. It's just to have that flexibility of making any kind of joke that I can think of be real. Yes, I think that after reading so many comics since I was a little, I developed a liking for just making humor. Like especially from comics like Garfield and also from slapstick cartoons such as Tom and Jerry. These are like huge inspirations for like the comics that I do, because sometimes I think that nowadays people just don't make good slapstick humor anymore. So sometimes like I think the best kind of punchline is just to be slapped in the face, or just have a clever pun. People like downgrade puns, but I think like they are the peak form of comedy. Don't at me. But overall, making comics are just fun. After thinking of a joke and then trying to make something that is quite rewarding when people say that they laughed at it, and I love it. So when I start making comics, of course, the first thing that I start with is thinking of an idea. It's one of the process that takes the longest time, because sometimes I could just sit in my chair for like 1 hour or two just to think of a joke to make a comic out of. But once I got something, it could be completely different from how I originally intended it. But then I started the regular drawing process, the sketching, the lining, drawing big muscular men because I like doing that for some reason. And so I would be drawing it and then thinking to myself, does this look good? Does this look good? And why do I not have a body like this? Once I'm done, I color it in and then start thinking about how to post it. Usually, I actually make a comic to 90% completion and then call it a day, because for some reason I could not decide on some things and I would finish it when I was going to post it. I'm not very efficient in that, but ultimately once it's posted, I'll be like, it's done, it's out there, I don't need to change it anymore, and finally I can call this comic a day. Yes, so in making a comic, I consider myself a pretty slow drawer. Some of my comic peers tend to take maybe 1 or 2 hours to make a comic, but for me, I can make a comic with up to 6 hours. And if I were to like really take my time, it could be more. I'm not very fast, which is also why my comics tend to take a long time before it comes out. But in the end of the day, once it's out, I can be proud of myself with my achievements. I made these fantastic things that people are going to be laughing at. Of course, it kind of sucks when Instagram like decides not to promote it, but that's a story for another day. I do try to put in as much details as I can with the time that I have. I don't tend to shade or do fancy things with my comics because like that would just take another layer of time. Usually what's important in a comic is of course the punchline, which is, as I've mentioned, takes the longest time to actually think of. But ultimately, once I have a comic, every single comic that I have made, I am proud of that to put out there for people to see. And it's makes it even more satisfying when people come to my comic and says either, "Oh my god, I think it's so funny," or maybe even, "Oh my god, I think it freaking sucks." Either way, it's good by me. Yeah, so for when it comes to growing on Instagram, like especially nowadays, it's incredibly difficult, as many people would know. back when I just started though, I spent a lot of time just talking to people, joining communities, joining groups, making a lot of friends in the process, having them promote you as well while you promote them at the same time. So basically, at this point in growing in social media, it's a bit difficult to be a solo act. It's a bit difficult to just be popular or just gain followers just from you and your efforts alone. So you join your communities, talk to the people. It also like humanizes you, makes people know that you're not just a faceless, at least in my case, a faceless author that people can't really see, but with a huge community of people and friends that really helped me get my comics going along. It helped me get a lot of reach, which is, I think, one of the very important parts of like showing my comics to people. Also, sometimes not only putting yourself on Instagram, but also posting on other social media platforms. Basically, just trying to branch out and to reach as many people as possible. At this point in time, I think one of the most popular social medias out there is TikTok. I don't personally use TikTok, but I know that if you're able to make videos and use that to promote your Instagram page as well, it would really help. There are various tricks out there, but ultimately it really boils down to having a community of people, getting yourself out there, commenting on other people, liking other people's stuff so that other people would do the same. It's always a very mutual thing, and it helped me a lot, and it really helped me get the following that I have right now. Yes, of course, first and foremost, whenever you make a page, make sure that whatever you're making is something that you absolutely enjoy. For me, I've been drawing since I was a kid, and also I really like jokes. So only at some point I think to myself, oof, I will combine those two things and make a comic page and make comics that I can be proud of, but I don't make it because I want to gain a following. I make it because I want to tell a joke. So it really applies to anything that you want to do, whether it be photography or cookery or anything of the sort. As long as you really like it, keep on making it without focusing too much on the following itself, and eventually you will hit that mark where people will start appreciating what you do, and that's where the following really comes in.